everyone, and welcome back to another tutorial for the Minecraft Create mod, where I thought we'd take a look at a bit of early game tree farming. And in fact, if you're brand new to the Create mod, it's worth having a little look at these two little items you can see over here. So we've got the hand crank and your mechanical saw. These can be used to cut down any tree very easily. All you need to do is go up to the base of it, crouch, and then right click your mechanical saw onto the base of the tree, place the hand crank and then turn it in any direction and it'll cut down the tree for you, including all of the leaves. It'll all fall down away from the saw and then you can easily just run around and pick them up. This also includes the bigger trees such as the larger oak trees, which can be a real pain to cut down. Just the same, they can be chopped down with the saw much easier than if you were doing it with an axe. And there we go. It'll also drop all the saplings for you so you can get all of the drops you would usually get. And if you want to use this as well to farm a very large amount of wood, you can just grow up all of your 2x2 trees next to each other. Then if you punch out all of these base pieces of wood that we can see, so this one vast tree is now being held up by that tiny little bit of wood you can see just there, we can use exactly the same method again to knock the whole thing down all in one go. So we just take out that little bit that was remaining, and there we go, the entire tree has fallen down, leaves and all, and we get all of these logs in one go. So if you're really early game, you don't necessarily need a tree farm immediately. And if you're lucky enough to live next to a warm ocean, which means you can get hold of coral, which you need to make tree fertilizer. Just to show you the recipe, as you can see, you'll need to have some form of coral that you can input into it. The great thing about this is that you can use it to grow any of the trees right next to each other, even when they'd usually require space. So for example, jungle trees in a 2x2, normally you wouldn't be able to grow one right next to it, it has to have a 3x3 space around it. But with fertilizer you can, it's kind of like super bone meal. And then, just the same as before, once you've grown up all of your trees, we can just knock out all of the base pieces, until we're left with just one remaining, to which we can then put our mechanical saw, crouching down, crank away on that one until it cuts through that wood, and then again it'll just pop off and you've got all of that wood available to you. And this also works for really awkward trees like the mangroves as well. You can easily plant these all alongside each other, grow them up, try not to get stuck in all of the roots. But if you come to just one of the little roots that sticks off, and then pop your mechanical saw up against that, once you've removed it, you should be able to pop all of the tree in one go, including all of the roots as well. Here we go, and then you can just collect up all of the bits and pieces. But let's assume you are now in the market for growing yourself a nice little tree farm. This one is very simple to make, it only uses a few different resources, and as you can see we've got an area that is planted up with saplings. They are then cut down by the saws, which are attached onto a mechanical bearing as they turn around. Once it's chopped down a tree, they are now temporarily stored in this little moving chest that you can see that is attached onto our contraption. There is a portable storage interface just here, which is going to go into the storage below. So if we just jump down, we'll see the bits and pieces will be filtering through into this chest just here. And best of all though, this is a very cheap little thing to make. You only need these few bits and pieces in order to make it, and technically large and small cogwheels are actually optional. But let's get started and let's make ourselves a little tree farm. And the first thing you're going to want to do is take your building blocks and decide where you want the centre of your farm to be. Once you've decided, you then need to build up by 6 blocks. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And then with dirt blocks we can start going out from each of the sides by 4. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to do that going all the way around. Once you've reached this stage, you can then go back to your building blocks again, and you're going to come just one off the end again and then add 2 on either side, so you've got a sort of little T shape coming off the end of your central block. And then again, we're going to do this to all 4 of our sides. And then once you reach this point, you can now fill in the area where the saplings are going to be grown. Do that bearing in mind the fact that you're going to have to connect these two building blocks up with more building blocks in a diagonal fashion, just like so that we're making a little sort of octagon shape. I think it's an octagon. So we'll just fill those little bits in until we have got our shape all made up. From there you can come back into the centre of your circle and we can remove this central block. We're going to be replacing that with a mechanical bearing. Then you can run off the edge, back down to the bottom and decide where you want the front of your farm to be. And I'm just going to mark that with a little block just so that I know where it is. Then I'm going to remove these blocks from the centre so that I can see my mechanical bearing, and to that I'm going to attach a large cogwheel. Now, knowing that this is the front, I don't want the power source to come any more towards the front, and so I'm going to place my small one just slightly to the side and at the back, just so that it's not going to be in the way. To that I can then attach a water wheel, and we need to get this water wheel powered. And to do that, again, I'm going to note where the front of my farm is, and I'm going to come around the back of this water wheel, and I'm going to build just a little box off to the back of it. Doing that, it's just going to be 2 little blocks wide, and this is where we're going to be having our water sitting. So to make a little water box, I will just surround 2 blocks with trapdoors, just as you see. Then when I remove these 2 central blocks, I will be able to place down a water source. The trapdoors will hold it in place, but it'll be flowing just enough to get that water wheel moving. Then I can remove this other block that was underneath the wheel, and I can put down these trapdoors. And there we go, so it's now a little self-contained water box. And the next thing we need to get sorted out is our storage. So the first thing I'm going to do is put down a torch so that we can actually see what we're doing down here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is place a vertical gearbox underneath our water wheel so that we can note which direction it's moving in. So this one is travelling in an anti-clockwise direction, which means I need my items to come in from the right-hand side, because it needs to be able to travel along the belt in order to get into the storage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to this large cogwheel that I know is attached to the bearing, and then I'm going to go along to the right until I get to the edge of the dirt, and I know that that is where I want my items to fall in. So what I can do there is I can place a portable storage interface by crouching and clicking, so that it's going to go up into that mud block, and then I can place a chute underneath that, and that is where all of the items are going to drop into our system. From this point then, I can decide how much storage I want there to be in this tree farm, and I want it to be the width of the entire building. And so I'm going to come just off to one side of the vertical gearbox, just build up my building blocks so that I've got somewhere to place shafts against, and then I'm going to go in the opposite direction as well, right to the very edge where the wall is. In fact, I'll bring the wall down just so that I can see exactly where it's going to end. From there then, I can take a shaft, place it onto the vertical gearbox, underneath the chute, and right up at the far side as well, just remembering that this is going to be a wall on this side. And then I can connect all this up with a belt. So as you can see, items are going to be able to come in through the portable interface, through the chute. They are then going to plop down onto this belt and travel along, and so I just need to place down some chests for them to actually go into. So we'll just place down a nice little row of double chests underneath. I am directly underneath the belt here. I'll pop in my chutes. And then I'll double up these chests. There we go, and that will be plenty of storage for this little farm to have. Do not get me wrong, you will be surprised at how much it builds up, especially if you're going to start using the 2 tall trees. It builds up really quite quickly, so it is worth having as much storage as you can possibly squeeze in. Now, one thing to note about these chutes though is that these are the early game variety, so at the moment they are not able to filter items. Everything that comes through from the top will go straight into the first chest until it is full, and then the second, then the third, then the fourth, and so on. When you do reach the stage that you've got brass and electron tubes, you'll be able to make smart chutes, which you can then just replace these old ones with. These will then be able to say, I only want oak logs, for example, to go into this first chest, and I only want spruce logs, for example, to go into the second chest. And then those will only go into these, whereas everything else will go into the normal chutes. And the last thing we need to do though is actually make our little farm itself. So we'll go back up the top and we'll come over to our little mechanical bearing, and we know that if we go right the way over to the right from this and remove that dirt block, there should be a portable storage interface, and there he is. So now we just need to make up an arm for all of our saws to attach to. So we'll just build up 4 blocks coming off to the right from our mechanical bearing. Then we're going to place our second portable storage interface facing down so that it can communicate with this one. To do that, crouch right up to the end of the arm, hover the cursor over the end of it, and then right-click to paste the interface so that it faces down. From there, we then need to put down our saws, and we know that this farm runs in an anti-clockwise direction from when we were mucking about with the belts below. So what we'll do is we'll come off the back, and we will place 4 saws in a row coming from the end, ignoring this first block, because if you place a saw there, it can't actually cut anything anyway. You can just completely ignore that one. And instead what we're going to do is we'll just place a little chest up on the top, and that'll be able to temporarily store our tree blocks for us. And then we just need to glue everything together. So if you come over to your chest and you right click it with your glue, you'll see that the first position has been selected. And then if you come all the way off, just onto your last little saw, and right click again, you'll see everything gets stuck together by these pale green lines. And so long as everything is inside the green box, then it is all stuck down. And lastly, all we need to do now is get our saplings down and set everything off. It's worth remembering though that you can't plant trees right next to the bearing, so it's worth getting rid of these blocks, replacing them with something you can't put a sapling on, such as a trapdoor for example, so you can still access the bearing. And that way you won't accidentally put saplings there which are going to get in the way. Once you've got everything set off though, you can come over to your bearing. If you right click on it with an empty hand, it will set off. And we can just get rid of that little block too that was left over. And now I'm just going to plant the place up with loads of saplings. And there you have it though. There is a little tree farm that is going to be able to generate plenty of wood for you. Semi-automatic, you do need to place down the saplings yourself, but then at least you can pick which trees it is you want to grow and in what sort of quantities. And it's absolutely fine for an early game experience. The only tiny little thing you might want to add to it is there is a way to switch off this farm if you use a sticky piston, if you have access to them. If you come round the back and you just see where the water is flowing in this direction, so this is your source block, not to be touched. If we just push up a block into this so that it's able to stop it, you'll see that we'll be able to stop the farm. So what you can do is you can just put down a little sticky piston, just like so, have a lever that can shove that block up, and then there we go, the farm is able to be stopped, and then that lever can just be flipped the other way, and it's back on again. That's just a little extra though, depending on whether or not you want to be able to switch your farm off. And from here though, it is just a case of decorating it up. And you can see for decoration, I kept mine really simple. I've just got a little staircase going up one side so that I can easily go and lay down the saplings, and other than that, it is pretty much just surrounded with stone brick. But so long as you've got easy access to your storage, that is all that matters. And just one last little thing to note about these farms is that they can be used to farm the nether trees very much more easily as well. You will need to replace a little patch of your ground with some nylium, and you will still have to bone meal the mushrooms, the same as you usually would do, but it does mean that the farm will cut down the tree as well as all of the annoying leaves up at the top as well, and it just makes harvesting them that little bit more pleasant. Anywho though, I hope you've enjoyed this little video where we've been looking at a bit of early game tree farming with the Create mod, first of all using the saw yourself and then getting a water wheel to do it for you. Happy Minecrafting everyone, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye!